Hello and welcome to Prompt's latest podcast, where we explore what students really want and how universities can engage with them. I'm really delighted to be joined by Owen O'Neill, the founder and powerhouse behind UniCompare, the university comparison site and app that has seen amazing growth in the past few years. And speaking from personal experience, has delivered exceptional campaign results for our clients. Today, I'll be speaking to Owen about UniCompare's growth, culture, and how the student research landscape is changing. Okay, without further ado, Owen, hello. How are you and how's your day been going so far?
Very good. Very busy. We're kind of in the closing down phase of some of our clearing campaigns. So it's just kind of wrapping up those reports and getting ready for September 2023 intake, really.
Definitely. Yeah, we're in the same stage ourselves. I mean, something we've certainly noticed with UniCompare, you guys have had a really good clearing, loads of exposure. It's been a really big kind of 12 months for you. What have been your highlights over the last cycle?
The there's been many, and this is a testament to my team, not not from me at the top, but I would say that it would come down to our growing client base. Even though if we look at us on the last 12 months, but if we look at ourselves, across the last couple of years, you can see that the entire client base is growing. So the increase in that client base has been really, really exciting for us. In terms of recruiting staff's been, I'm sure everyone's experienced this, has been quite challenging at times. So recruiting the right staff and making sure that they have the right onboarding and the right training to kind of carry that company mission and ethos forward has kind of been a lot of stuff being worked behind the scenes there. And then I guess we are working on, even though the last 12 months have been really, really exciting, we have just started working on a new brand, which is going to come across the entire product. We're working very, very hard on bridging the gap between our app product and our web product. So we'll have lots of exciting releases over the next 6 months for that.
New shiny brand. A name change, or is it just the
No name change, no name change. But I think it comes down to the we feel like that we can improve some of our messaging a little bit, who we are as a business, our tone. And also, we've run lots of user testing over the last 6 to 12 months. And I think the one thing that shows is that maybe red probably isn't the best color to lead with. So that will certainly change as well.
Interesting. Can't wait to see it. You mentioned your great team, and listen, we all think your team's great. You're so easy to work with, so on it, and clients say the same. And you mentioned kind of recruitment, but obviously it's more than that. It's the culture that you've built and developed. Like, what steps have you taken to build such a great team?
The building a great team kind of works in two ways. It's one is hiring great staff, and the second is kind of getting out of their way. So we do have when we go to hire, the first thing we look for is attitude, and the second we look for is drive. So if not everyone shares that common goal of kind of achieving something great, then I think it's going to be very, very challenging for the team to pick up that slack. So um, building that sort of culture from the top, highly driven, really, really want to achieve great things. It is certainly the number one thing we look for. And then it's the actually releasing responsibility, which as a business owner, maybe you face this as well, Marcella, is the phrase we use is called letting go. And letting go is something I've actually struggled with quite a lot. But as soon as I did, it made life a lot easier and the company grew a lot faster. So in terms of kind of building a great culture, it was getting great staff, make sure they're driven, and then also getting out of their way.
Yeah, that last point, I'm totally with you on that. I think when I first started Prompt, it was you just want to be involved in everything and you want to lead everything, but actually great ideas often don't come from you. They come from the team. And probably you've noticed with your culture and also your rebrand as well, it comes from within, and it's not about you anymore. It's about the company. And I think that's one of the best things about growing a business is seeing that happen.
So Yes, but also I'm 32 now, which to me I feel like a dinosaur because some of the staff and some of the people I interview are now 21, fresh out of uni. That's a 10-year gap. So maybe my judgment calls aren't that accurate anymore, given our audience. So I think that's also a large part of it as well.
Yeah, it is important to have. Firstly, you're not a dinosaur, and it's grossly offensive to me, who's definitely not 32. Yeah, it's really good to have people that work with you that are really connected to the audiences that we're trying to engage. Um, with that in mind, like, how have you seen student research changing, kind of what they're looking for and how they're engaged?
Um, I think student research is a funny one, right? Because it's only as good as the data you get. So I think before maybe people dig into research, maybe they've got to understand what they're measuring, and that's something we're doing internally across the business. So we've actually changed pretty much every major KPI to a conversion-based KPI, and that's how we do it. And that also ties into the way that the students research. So if we don't understand the pathways or what students are looking at, what percentage of people are converting, how many impressions does it take to get that prospectus all up? If all of those metrics aren't in place, then effectively we don't really know what the true research that students are doing. So but the way trends are changing is we're seeing students be far more proactive than what they was before. So we see a large portion of students now signing up, probably about 15% signing up, 18 months before they even apply. So this is way earlier in the cycle. I remember when I was in school, we had lower sixth and upper sixth, and when we were going for university, it was the carrot of uni was dangled in lower sixth, and then as soon as you joined in the upper sixth, it was pushed upon you September, go 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 go, and we're talking 6 months before apply, and then another 6 months until you actually turn up. So you're talking 12 to 18 months in that weird zone where you actually research, but all of our data shows that people are coming to us a lot earlier. So I mean, maybe that comes down from two things, which maybe university is a bit more accessible, and maybe the course offerings are a lot better, so it's more ingrained in their culture. But the first thing I definitely see is a lot of earlier research being completed, and then also because clearing is kind of a big push for us. The number one thing we see there in terms of clearing, and not just standard undergraduate applications, would be that we see clearing as a second chance for people to move, and it can be a really dangerous time for certain universities in terms of retention. So we see a lot of people sign up just in the chance that something becomes a better offer. And I think that's where it kind of needs to turn into that kind of always on activity, where a university needs to always be active and always needs to have that voice, because it's not about winning that new student, it's about maintaining your current. So I'd say there are a couple of trends I've seen lately.
I definitely agree with wholeheartedly with that second one. It's that universities have to convert from literally the moment a student shows interest right the way up to them turning up on the day. Like, the conversion period isn't just application to enrollment, it's every single step. I'm sure you've probably seen loads of changes in over the years, but in this 18-month cycle we're talking about, students looking at different things in the run up to university. I know you have a lot of course traffic, but they want to know more about the experience, don't they? And that covers so many different areas.
So we see a lot of students just almost ready to not necessarily switch their choice, but to just in case something better comes along. And it's such a long process window to make a decision. A prime example, which obviously this is not a case study, this is just something that could happen, but a student could go on a university, be convinced that they're going to go to that university. When they're going to apply in January, when they're thinking about applying in clearing or going ahead of September, they might read a couple of reviews online which could be at the halls of residence that they're staying at, and then all of a sudden that might plant that seed of changing that kind of their viewpoint on what they're actually selecting, and that alone can shatter that choice of going elsewhere. And I think it just burrows down into that universities do need a very strong keep warm strategy. So we do talk to a lot of universities that maybe don't do that as well as others. So those that are, showing university events, sending them open days, even if they've attended. This is new, what we've worked on. These are new facilities that are coming. We can't wait to welcome you in September. Like there needs to be like a flurry of stuff. So if any, contact comes from another university, it's not going to triumph the long-standing relationship that they've already built.
Mm. I really like how you mentioned that kind of the new elements, like things happen at universities all the time. If you search for a university's news page or what they've been up to, I'm always amazed at all the awesome things that are going on, and it doesn't always trickle down to prospective student comms.
I think the argument should also be not all of it should trickle down. So that's where maybe their own audience themselves will probably be the best way of understanding what's actually useful. So if I was in charge of a university and I was in charge of the students coming up, I would talk to all of the current first years and I'd understand what actually were what were their decision making metrics, and I would use that in all of the communication that we use for the following year coming up, because those are what won us students. And then you do the same, and over time you have lots of qualitative and quantitative data where it ends up breaking down into all of the best USPs. Just because you've got £100 million brand new accommodation building does not mean that sentence is going to sell it. So I think, I feel like not all of it should trickle down, but certainly the bits that convert.
Yeah, and with social media, it's, certainly what we're seeing, every social channel, every touch point, students want something slightly different from. They've got an expectation about the content they're going to get, not just in its format, but in actually what the content's covering. So you kind of need channel specific content strategies, not just for social, but even for like UniCompare profiles and how you're engaging with students throughout the cycle on each particular platform.
Yeah, so I think it needs to vary entirely. The one thing we do get, which is not often, I will be honest, I think the universities are fantastic at this, but sometimes we do get it. And sometimes that's when we get content that it looks like it's been used elsewhere, which our audience is completely different to an audience on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram. So that messaging needs to be unique to us. And having that working relationship with the client or an agency like yourselves allows us to kind of tweak those things and say, it's fantastic you mentioned this, but our audience isn't really receptive to this bit of news, so why don't you focus on X? Which certainly can help, I think. Yeah.
So let's get real then with this, because that's a really good point, and it's something that we certainly see is that universities do advertise on a range of specialist and publisher sites, and I'm sure they'd all say they'd love to update their profiles regularly and their content regularly. There's not always enough hours in the day to do it.
Mm-hmm.
We know they've got great content. What advice would you give to universities to make sure they can maximise their engagement with, say, UniCompare?
So maximising works in loads of different ways, and I guess it comes down to the university's direction. So some universities will be like, we've released a new brand, new tone, new everything. So it's very important that the messaging we use is in line with everything we're using elsewhere. So that, in my opinion, is something that is quite hard to change. But then also there's the other side of things, which is that if we have the ability to change the content, then we can actually tweak that around SEO and probably gain more traction. So there's which is that fine line in between how do we add value internally and then how do we create that value externally. So I think in terms of messaging, universities just need to know what they are saying, and they need to just tailor it ever so slightly per audience.
It's always a conversation we're having, because in a 12-month period, so much can change at a university. You mentioned brand, messaging, new content, and it's how that can surface at the right time in a way that really suits the platforms that they're on.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And I'm sure, UniCompare, you're always evolving, you're always launching new things. It'd be great to maybe if you could tease us a little bit, kind of what's in the pipeline for you guys in the next 12 months or beyond.
So I'd say for us, we're really focused on product. So our engineering and product teams have doubled in the last 12 months. and we have a mixture. We have an overseas team and a UK team. Our UK team has tripled, but the overall product and engineering team has doubled. So we've kind of been in this like quiet building stage. We've been, looking a lot at how our data is structured, have a look at a lot of the things that we're measuring. And then hopefully in the next 12 months, we'll have lots of new products in terms of trends to plot. We'll have brand new dashboards released. We'll end up hopefully becoming a very strong resource in terms of understanding not only the data that the universities are getting from us, but also understand what's actually working the best. Because we see ourselves as a huge data aggregator, but yet we don't allow access to data for universities. So we want to bridge that gap to ensure that basically the universities have access to as much as possible. And that's how, I think that ties into a few stats I think we shared over Results Week, which was we looked very, very hard into all of our data and all of our touch points. And we worked out which way can we add a lot of value to universities. This is like position, button colors, understanding how search works, looking at hundreds of heat maps, maybe even thousands of heat maps and live recorded sessions. So we get loads of quality and loads of quantitative data. So then, but just by making those small changes, we was able to increase calls by about 60%. And I think our overall page views across the entire platform went up 50%. So just like, and that's all from product changes. That's not from more SEO. That's not from more users. That's from making the users that we are using us are more engaged.
Really, really interesting. It's great that you kind of took the time and put the resources aside to do that, because often it is incremental changes that make really big difference from a UX and conversion point of view. One thing we really like about working with UniCompare is that you engage with your students not just in one way. You use notifications, push, social, email, and like you kind of hone in on what works best for that student. And I think that's where we've seen a lot of results. It's that really kind of bespoke way of working with the university. Even though you work, like you said, with a lot of universities in the field, it always feels like it's been really considered for that institution.
So we have a multi-tiered approach. A lot of the software we have is really, really good in terms of being able to plot probabilities. So we can say student is, 92% interested in Kent and is, 12%, 8% interested in here. So because we're able to understand like true plots and true trends, we're able to then put that into a multi-tiered marketing approach, which sounds all cheesy with names, right? But the way it works is that you need to target the right student at the right time, but also on the right medium. So sometimes we'll send an email. If that student doesn't open that email, we'll send them an SMS. If they don't click the link in the SMS, they'll receive a push notification. So that's a three-tiered approach that's going to approach all of those touch points to get that conversion. And that's something a lot of the other platforms aren't doing. They're just using one medium, going for it, and then trying to get the results from that. But from me personally, I'm not very engaged through an email. But if you send me an SMS, I'm going to read it and I'm going to consider that conversion. So for me, that's my medium, but yours could be email.
Yeah. It's really refreshing to hear of that machine learning model working to drive conversions. And I think a lot of universities would love to do that for their institution. And you mentioned kind of emails not working. I think we've all seen a decline in kind of email engagement over the past 5 years. But prospective students are doing things that we can't keep up with as a sector. They're on new platforms, they're engaged in different ways, new content formats. And I absolutely think it's the companies like yourselves that are meeting them right now where they're at that will be the people that deliver those meaningful conversions.
Because it's a funny one, right? Because we are multi-platform, right? In terms of cross-platform, so we are Android, iOS, and web. And our vision is that you can start your journey on app and then you can finish on web. So it doesn't matter where you start or where you end in that process. It is one universal process. And that's the thing that people need to tackle. So the last time I booked a hotel, booked an Airbnb, booked an Uber, ordered a takeaway, none of those were on websites. So what I don't understand is why some universities and other platforms are quite apprehensive of moving into that space. And I think they just need to maybe look at their own user habits, or more so maybe their sons and daughters, and then maybe they might understand a little bit more.
Mm.
But it's yeah, I think it all comes down to that multi-tiered approach, and just being a little bit smarter with how we approach students.
Yeah. And I suppose it's a good way to kind of finish our conversation off. You mentioned to me previously that you really see yourselves as kind of tech first, which I think I really think that is a big part or key to your success because, like you said, you understand that kind of the journey and the functionality. And still very passionate about education. Just seems like a perfect match.
So even though we are an ed tech platform, I see us as I said, as a tech platform first. So, because our entire business and who we are does not exist without tech. We could effectively be on the ground going to colleges and we would just be education. So our business can exist on an educational standpoint, but we can't be online without tech. So something you may not know, we've never had a man on the ground ever. We've never gone to colleges, we've never gone to schools, we've never gone to unis. It's all done digital. And that's so we can track conversions, track those pathways, and then understand exactly where those acquisitions are happening. So yeah, we are entirely product first, but with a massive passion for education.
Yeah. And just on that, I think I was definitely surprised when I heard how many people are in your team. I mean, what number are you at now?
We're at 28, and then we have 9 open roles at the moment. So we'll be 37 come Christmas. Which, given maybe 4 years ago we was 4. I think we've come a long way, which is a testament to all of my great staff, not myself. But yeah, I am very happy with the team. Yeah, they are fantastic.
I just think it's incredible growth, and we were so excited when you were like app of the day and all the rankings that you have in those really important places for prospective students, like the iTunes App Store. It's kind of you could only dream about that as a tech owner. So I think whatever you're doing, it's clearly working, and we can't wait to follow your growth in the future.
Well, thank you. And yeah, well, I mean, we are incredibly excited, but also at the same time, we know that the journey's not over. So it's very important that we put our heads down. It's great that we've recognised the success that we've had so far, but there's so much more help that we can do. The industry is actually kind of crying out for a true tech solution, I think. And I don't think anyone's there yet. I'd say we're not there yet. I'd say some of our biggest competitors are not truly there yet. So there's definitely lots of room to grow where I think universities can benefit.
Super. Well, like I said, we'll hopefully join you on that journey and continue to work closely with you.
I'm sure
Owen,
we will.
it's been a really insightful call. Thank you, Owen. I'm sure a lot of people listening will be really interested in all you've said and hopefully really inspired as well. So thank you so much for joining us. And listeners, thank you so much for listening. Do hit the like, follow, share your experiences, and be sure to tune into our next podcast of What Students Want. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you, Owen.
Cheers. Thank you.